Okay. Then we started with what is the two approaches towards making a solution, or I would say a problem solving is. One is a solution based approach where the focus of your making a solution, it is the focus of this approach is providing with a solution to the problem, but problem based approach has problem in the center and which tries to fix the obstacles and limitations. So if we are looking for a long term impact and also stopping the things from occurring in the future, the right approach is a problem based approach. And if we are looking for an immediate solution, because depending upon the situation, if we are looking for an immediate solution, it is a solution based approach. Then we came to another way of classifying the problem solving, the traditional approach versus the design thinking approach. The traditional approach basically it focuses on the solution based approach, and focuses on design thinking focuses on the problem solving approach. As well as the problem solving in traditional method, it is linear and structured approach. Whereas the traditional, as I have told you, it is has got multiple feedbacks, and therefore there is lot of back and forth in the process to when you are developing a final solution. Traditional, it is actually starting with the pre-assumptions, I would say, with the set of data, and accordingly it comes out with the solution. And it's a straightforward with no flexibility or innovation. It's like standard solutions, adopting it and moving forward. So this is a simple straight line approach, as you can see, the problem solving. Whereas when you look at the design thinking, it is a problem solving framework. It is, although both are human centered, definitely you have empathy in place, but it is not only human centered, but is also looking to make an approach and innovation. I have been telling you a difference between an innovation and ideation. Ideation could be at a stage when you have an idea about a solution to a problem, but when you are looking for an innovation that is the masses accepted, you need to have a process oriented approach to make the things acceptable to the masses rather than being only to solve a single person problem. So it looks into possibilities of technology and also the business requirements for the success. So if we compare the traditional problem solving versus the design thinking, here traditional, as I told you, it moves forward with the viewpoint of the designer, because it is like a subject expert who is designing it, whereas it is a team that is designing, and therefore they definitely have client centered, but also they have the bigger vision of making the things acceptable to the masses. Traditional thinking, it talks about the problem and therefore is looking focusing on the solution only. It is keeping the problem in the center and having lot of solutions for testing it. And the existing ideas and best practices are taken as a base for starting, and maybe it could be a repetitive solution. There are a lot of innovations in design thinking to come out with a new way of resolving a particular problem. Traditional thinking, it is about avoiding a failure, and as I told you yesterday, why we have a prototype step, it is to help you fall fast to understand the ideas or the solutions that you have designed are able to solve it or not. It gives you one answer, traditional way, I would say, one and the right answer only. It asks for the right questions. That is basically a problem could have multiple solutions, and finds out what could be the right of those solutions, what could be the right approach. Traditional is about telling the user what is right for them, but design thinking is showing to the users and understanding what is right for them. As I told you, it is about subject expert being the center of this whole process. It is a process expert, and that is a team that is working on it in design thinking. It is a passive experience, that is, you are not involving actively in it in the traditional approach, but whereas in design thinking, it's an active involvement of the users and the designers in the process. Then if I have to again further pictorially compare as a right solution, as you say, it takes only one solution as a right and develops a solution, whereas design thinking, as we have seen through the brainstorming, you may have multiple solutions and you see which works best for the person under or the customer under, I would say, focus. Although both are user centered, but as I already told you, design thinking is definitely user centered, but also has other parameters to final designing. So traditional has user centered approach, which begins with the research, that is a data set or the prior research to know the users. Empathy definitely is a part of both user design, that is a traditional approach, and the design thinking approach. And it is iterative process to allow for a constant evaluation and improvement. Here we have to understand the difference between a design thinking and simply the traditional, which is a user-centered design. It is the process in user-centered, your feedback of the users as well as the experiences of the users are at the forefront or at the focus. And then what are the differences between your user-centered and design thinking? It is user-centered design and design thinking both find solution to the people problems, but the mindset in generally is similar, but the primary focus may not be the same. The user-centered design focuses on fostering empathy with the population you are designing for, and their goal is to create a solution with the user's needs and feedback in the forefront. And that is the reason why this approach may give you a solution for a particular user, but may not be actually acceptable to the masses. That is a point of failure when we have a user-centered approach. User-centered design is a great approach when you want to design a highly desirable project. You may say that you are looking for a customized project or product, then this is useful. But when we look at the design thinking, it definitely needs users, human-centered, the approach is there. It definitely needs the knowledge of the users. It also takes into consideration the feasibility and the viability of the design that you are taking. So technical feasibility and the business goals are also considered. This is a method that can be applied to a more than just product development. So it could be a process, it could be a service, it could be any other experience that you want to give to the user. So user-centered is definitely for a product development approach. So design thinking utilizes abductive reasoning to identify and solve complex problems that may affect product design or organizational policies, processes, and functions. That is what I said. It is not limited to a product development, but to also the processes, services, functions, and the policies. So this clearly picture you can visualize as what is the difference between design thinking and user. Although they have, as I told you, both have empathy, problem solving, both are towards problem solving, both are an iterative approach, both have collaboration into consideration. But here the focus in user-centered is only the needs and the feedback, but here the focus is desirable features, feasibility, as well as viability, because you're looking for making your idea into an innovation. Here in user-centered, it is good for designing highly desirable products for a specific population. As I told you, you can go for a customized product. But when you look for a design thinking, it is good for identifying and solving the complex problems. So it could be an approach which could be extended to solving the problems. So what do user-centered and design thinking have in common? As I already showed you, empathy, problem solving, iteration, and collaboration. So we have already seen some of the tools that you use for design thinking. Empathy, we have seen the survey forms, the interviews that could be done in an online medium or offline also. You can define by, we have already seen make my persona. That's a way of defining your problems to identify the pain areas. Ideate, it could be the brainstorming and the lab sessions to find out what could be the best solution. Prototype, we have already seen it could be drawing, it could be frames or boards that can be used. Then testing, we have already seen it has to be a user testing in the actual environment. And I hope all of you must have used the Miro or the Kanban tool. So they are like whole process can be put up as in a chart, and you can find out what is completed and what is not completed. Basically, it could be process management that you can do in a Miro. That is a tool that you are already aware of. Now, the question comes is you are studying this subject, and is it really relevant to engineering, or design is something like non-technical people are doing? What do you say? I've put up certain examples of design thinking, but I just want to know your viewpoint on this. As do you think design thinking is something that an engineer should also know, or their work is only the technical solutions and no reference to how the product may look, or how the things should move, or basically the process? Yes, anyone, if you could write in chat. I hope you all are there. Or is it only the number that I see? 37. Yes. Yes, Utkarsh Jadhav. What do you say? Design thinking. Utkarsh, then Rishabh Tiwari, Anjali Priya, Akash Dubey, Anand Yadav.
Yes, ma'am. Anjali Priya.
Yeah. So, how do you, can you tell me why do you think design thinking has a relevance in an engineering curriculum? It's Anjali, if you could unmute or.
Yes, ma'am. What you asking?
I'm asking, do you think learning design thinking is important for an engineering curriculum?
Yes, ma'am. It is important.
Why? Give me one reason, just one reason. Anyone else who can tell me what could be the reason for learning design thinking?
Ma'am, as it will improve our innovation and creativity. It can also helps to ensure that the final product and the service remain human-centered. It can focus on enhancing user experiences.
Good. So as I told you, if you do work towards making a solution, definitely you are an engineer, you have all the skills to be developing a technical solution. Your approach would be a user-centered approach. And we saw the difference between a user-centered and a design thinking. How are they different? You may be able to design the products which are actually solution to the problems. Basically, if I take your final year projects, they would definitely be if I talk about your final year projects, they were definitely taking a problem at the center, but you are just looking at making a solution or providing us a solution with it, but not looking at how you can make it into an innovation. So if you apply this design thinking, there could be like many opportunities to be an entrepreneur to, because if your idea is great, people are there to buy your ideas, you will definitely be making an impact on others also. Okay. So relevance of, yes, design thinking, as Anjali said, is definitely important for an engineering curriculum. Uh, so so there are certain examples, I would say, or the stories which talks about the products which were brilliant in engineering but were a commercial disaster because the process was not followed. They have put all their energy and money only on making the design and did not look into what will work and what will not work. So product often reflects the shortcomings in design philosophy of engineers that have built it. So we have to see that how design philosophy is helping us to convert our idea into an innovation. And also the design thinking, as it's an iterative process, it looks into where what's working and what's not working, and it's like continuously improvement. And that is how that helps you to actually survive in the market also. So if you are looking at no change, yes. Okay, if we are looking at making a product which could work at the first instance or but may not be of the same use after some time, because you did not look into what are the things that are not working and did not work on continual improvement. So if we look at the Japanese philosophy, they are working on the Kaizen, which is about continuous improvement. And when there are examples of Ford and Apple which talks about how design thinking, adopting of a design thinking have uh, impacted their product and has had a huge impact. So Apple, as I have already told you about in the last lecture, that how they understood that the manuals had no utilization and they have to actually make the things more interactive and user friendly so that the things the customer is able to use all your designs. And similarly with the Ford, they talk about how he made that this vehicles were important for an each individual. Basically, ownership of a car was an important by organizing various events, which actually gave them the publicity as well as gave the users an experience that they should be owning a car. And that is how they have, although they did not have much variety, but still they are able to capture the market. So this I have already talked about. Into the future, will design lead engineering become the norm? Yes, the answer is the engineering. You don't have to be only the solution provider, but you have to be an innovator to be able to make an impact. So now, how do you actually, as I have been talking about, how do you actually make a team? The team is only of engineers, or the team has to have a communicator, has to have someone who is developing your content, who is able to design your product, looks and feel. Everyone, accounting, the pricing, and everyone has to come together to actually be making a team, diverse team, that could be the part of your design thinking process. So the team formation, it should have the right mix. That is the key to success, right? So I would not means a design thinking team should not have all the students. That is why you have heard of this word multidisciplinary approach. So that when the team from mechanical is coming, they are able to give you a visualization into the product development, the sensor part. Somebody at some other team is taking care. Which team has gone for that Nirman Hyperloop team, right? They have the team representation from all departments, and I know they have allocated the work also. I think who is there from that team in the group? Chaurasia. Uh, Anybody is there from that team? If you could explain as how did the process of team formation take place? Lecture is okay. Okay, so I just wanted to quote that example. I think some more teams are now there. The SIG team, are there in the institute also, who are focusing on a multidisciplinary approach, so that the people come with the knowledge and the expertise in various domains and are able to perform better. So teams, as you know, is an essential part of your project. There are uh, four steps, I would say, that are essential part of a team performance. That is forming a team, storming, norming, and performing before the team is actually performing. Can anyone elaborate on? Because as far as I know, this has again been covered as a part of your holistic development. If anyone can share anything in the chat as what are these processes and how they can actually help into the forming the right team. Yes. Yes, Mr. Anand Yadav, Mahendra Sutar, Rishabh Tiwari, Manav Sangvi. Are you there in the class? Kunal Agarwal, Aman Singh, Nupur. Nobody is there in the class. I'm talking to my screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Nupur. Can you tell me,
Yeah.
as far as I understand, this part has already been means kind of delivered to all of you in the various
Yes.
holistic development. So if you could share, what do you
Yes,
understand
ma'am.
by team
This was
formation?
very This was there in entrepreneur development open elective in last semester.
Okay,
So in forming stage, just forming of the group is done, and it involves assigning different roles to different members of the group. And
okay.
in storming, basically there are conflicts and uh, unmatching opinions where different people have different opinions and different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to find one thing that is comprising of all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And in norming, one solution is found considering all the views from all the group members. And in performing, they actually do the work. And adjourning is basically when the project or process is done, then the group is adjourned.
Okay, good, good, very good. So anybody else has to add something to what Nupur has shared? So these are certain things that normally happen. Sometimes, in if I take an example of your project, you see to it that your like-minded people are coming together, avoiding this storming because you already are aligned and you are expected to perform in the short duration of say 1 year that you are working on it. And but when it comes to a multidisciplinary team, you see a lot of times there are conflicts, there are issues among the team as to actually uh, seeing to it that the viewpoint of all has to be respected. That creates lot of coming to a common solution requires lot of time, and once you come to a common objective or agenda that is there, and then they can start performing. Okay, so very nice, Nupur. So this is just what she has already talked about, how the team formation should be done. So I'll just quickly read on the some important points that are to be performed. The project managers often do not know which people they need for their project. A team is a social system which builds on a good match of motivation, skills, and interaction of its constituent parts. If one person does not fit, the whole team will most likely unperform. Thus, the project managers needs to analyze the project task and derive the key requirements. So, all of you must have seen that whenever a company is coming for recruiting the people, first they give us what are the things that they are expecting from the people who would be joining their company. It should not be a mismatch in I was expecting this kind of work and you are offering me something else. That is why every time the company comes, they specify the roles that they are looking for the people to perform. And in this process, the TNP circulates their call for registration. And then when you find that the things are suitable for your profile and you are looking for such kind of a job, you actually registered for it. An example of it, I would say that recently, basically, a training organization approached us saying that they are working on a STEM program and wanted some of the engineering students who could be looking forward to work with them into designing such kind of basically educational project products. And it when the TNP circulated that, there was no registration. So definitely it's as per your interest. You find that that particular job is suitable or not, and you can become a part of a team. uh, it always does not need a perfect team. Definitely, there could be some things, most of the things I would say matching, certain things not matching. That's okay because sometimes conflicting viewpoints are also important for the team to actually perform also and look into the different angles also. Then, uh, so as she correctly said, these are the things that help a team get to know each other, build relationship, clarify the team purpose, set individual roles and expectations, Then improve the team communication, articulate team and individual needs, agree on how to handle the conflict productively, norming, build the team spirit, give the group room, surface and analysis of problem effectively. Performing is capture and document the learning point, continue to build the team spirit, encourage proactively and autonomy, and adjourning is reflect and collect learning points and definitely celebrate one another. So this is same thing. Just a minute. Yeah. Now, how do you means there are certain, you can say, the points that the manager has to keep in mind to have a right mix is the project manager analyzes the project with its requirement, because he has to set the right requirements. It is his task to set the right requirements, then only he will be getting the right people with the right skills. If you go wrong in identifying or analyzing the project and its requirement, the people who may be joining with certain expectation, there could be more of conflict, I would say, in that particular case. The project sponsor ensuring the deployment of the right team members from the functional departments in order to help the project to succeed. So the recruitment team has to see that the particular project requirements are being met. Then the project team members themselves performing assigned tasks in the best possible way through the motivation, skills, and interaction. Documentation is also an important part of any project, because it is like in case a team member resigns or leaves, or in case some other team members join when the project is looking for on a roadmap, looking for development of a new features, there has to be a proper documentation of what has been initially done, what all things have been done. The project implementation is documentation is the implementation of streamlined, efficient, and uniform processes for producing the key documents that are required to implement a new project successfully. It's like the new version of it could be successfully made, and people who would be joining new to the team have get an offset with the help of that particular document, rather than again starting from scratch to understand every code that has been written to actually come up with a newer version. Might include business cases, project status reports, project requirement sheets. In addition, the project document process outlines a clear approach for organizing these essential project documents. This uniform considered approach means that these key documents will be easy for the whole team to use, ensuring that creation of a new project goes on without a hitch. So that is why we always, when we will come to the part of logbooks and the journals that you maintain as a part of your regular, it's again a kind of developing the documentation habit as what all readings that you are getting, what all outputs you are getting, what outcome you have achieved. So that is simply the same process that you need to follow whenever you are working on any product development. Whenever you basically, when you talk about observation, they could be the test case results that you are achieving for a particular scenario, and hence those documentation becomes an important part. Maybe even you talk about a research paper being published, it's about documenting your observation, your results, and analyzing it and presenting it correctly for anybody who wants to take forward your project. It necessarily not you that would be taking your project forward, it can be anybody that can take. That is the main purpose of project documentation. By adhering to these guidelines, you will be able to establish a complete traceability of the document in your workflow. Beyond this, the process of project documentation also involves the outlining of a clear and accessible layout, format, and level of written content. Normally, a standardized process of project documentation is put in place by the project manager or by the team leader. In general, project documentation is a vital standardized organizational technique that an entire team should be practicing. What I find is, or what complaints that we normally get when we are interacting with the corporate is, students definitely, if I take myself also, it's easy to do the task, or it's very not easy, I would say it's interesting and more engaging to do the new task, developing a new solution. But when it comes to actually putting it in a way that anybody who is reading it is able to understand and could correlate with his work and take certain inputs from your work, it's actually little difficult, because it needs lot of involvement while making, as well as maybe from the point of view there are no innovations in it. It's just a kind of a copy paste interpretation and representation. So that is how the why we are lacking on certain places. As you may be knowing, we with respect to IPRs, we have very less number of IPRs, because of our habit of not properly documenting the things and presenting it in the right format. The problem is, I have made a document, but the agencies have their requirements to be put in the right format, so that the people actually, those who would be assessing your work or those who would be referring your work, know where to find what, and therefore those formats are defined. So the next part, you look into how the formats are prepared, like project documentation. This is certain case which talks about how this project business case is prepared, as what is the project name, the project sponsor, who has done the requirement, who is the project manager, what is the date of approval of the project, the last date, revision date, what was it, contribution to the business strategy, options considered, the benefits that you are expected to achieve, the time scales, the cost, the expected return of the investment. So this is how you make your business case before you actually, so this is something which is not only what you have done, this is at the initial stage, the first time, as I've talked about when your empathy part. So you need to have a before, during, and after. So this, I would say, as a project implementation, this is a very crucial document which makes you understand the clear objectives, the limits of with respect to the timelines, with respect to the cost, with respect to the human resources that you would be handling, and what is the expected return that you are expected to give, the benefits or the business return that you are expected to give to your company, along with identifying the risk. Every project has its risk. So identifying the risk, like when I talk about a team, normally that comes out from the corporate is, they actually take into consideration if certain team members leave in between, because they have the deadlines to meet. So how are they going to overcome such kind of risk? So there could be certain risk with respect to, say, obtaining a license. So license acquiring could be, say, a 2-month process or a 1-month process, or maybe getting the right data, or many things are there with respect to the risk, which may result in your product or a project becoming non-functional. A case I would just say is my sister's son. He was working on a project for a Maruti car. So what they wanted is, as soon as you scan the QR code, you should know what are the features, and then the service provider has to, means the service manager, not the provider, he has to just tick on what is in place, all of you must have experienced when you go for a servicing. It means basically they were looking into the different cars with the different features, what is working, what is not working, or what needs to be. For there, you need to have that. It was an app that they had to develop. So it was a very simple project, a very short timeline. The project was ready, and when they went there, to their surprise, they haven't actually taken into consideration what would be the size of the screen that would be scanning their QR code. They have made the app taking the biggest size of the screen of a mobile into consideration, and what they found was they were given a small mobiles in which actually the QR code size itself was not fitting. So that was a business consideration, I would say, that was not taken as a limit to making their project, and then they had to again redefine the dimensions when they were uh, went again with the improved solution. Yeah, any doubts, anything that you want to ask? Anybody? Yes. Anyone, any doubt is there? Can you tell me some other, this was just one way of documenting a full case, project documentation, means prior to your implementation. Can you tell me any other example of a format that you have come across which is about project documentation? Yes? Yes, everyone. You have used it. Tell me the formats that you have used or the places where you have used the formats to represent your whole project idea. Yeah,
Ma'am, where I can say making reports
perfect. Making reports of what?
for innovative examinations, uh, for what means specification and detail about the project,
So
or
basically a project based PBL, RBL, your final year project, the 7 semester report. So all that have got a particular format, and that is nothing but a process of project documentation. So what I'm telling you right now is not what you haven't used it. Perfect. Very good. This project documentation is a process which actually all engineers or engineering students are following. I would say even your simple one experiment that you are performing is also a kind of a project documentation. The small experiment that you have performed, the observations, the results, the design changes, or whatever you have done, that is also a part of a documentation process, right, everyone? So why the formats are important? So that any new person who is coming knows where to search for, what to search and where to search for, and how to get the answer to his queries, right, everyone?
yes,
And
ma'am.
can anyone also tell me what is an important? अगर documentation नहीं होगा, तो what could be your challenge? What could be a challenge? Why people insist on documentation? Or companies, big companies especially, have a lot of documentation. Can anyone tell me? The bigger the company, the more is the documentation.
Ma'am, proper arrangement and structured way of information, so better to understand the things what are going on.
Yes, very good. So it is a process oriented approach, right? One is a process oriented approach. Second is it is not person dependent, right? If I'm there right now in that particular company, tomorrow I'm not there, the things won't stop. What I was doing is already documented. Anyone who is coming in my place knows what to do, how to do, maybe with a slight delay for initial training. So that is the reason the bigger companies, you will find the failure rates are smaller compared to the smaller companies, because the smaller companies do not give importance to the knowledge transfer. That is the documentation. Documentation is a way of knowledge transfer from one person to another who may have not worked on a previous project, but now is a part of that particular team. Right, everyone? Yes? Okay, I think, what's the time? Just let me take the screenshot, although I think it will be generated automatically before I proceed further. Just a minute. I'm able to. Just one last screenshot I have to take. 68. Yeah. Is my screen visible? Yeah, so quick recap of what we did today before I close today's meeting. It's just, I think, 5 minutes left. So we started with our traditional thinking versus design thinking today. We looked into how traditional problem solving is different from the design thinking and why traditional thinking is not the right approach and design thinking is the right approach, because it gives you not only user-centered approach, but also takes into feasibility and viability. So then we looked into basically the traditional thinking, which is a user-centered design, and the design thinking, what are common and what are not common ways. So both have empathy, problem solving, and iteration, collaboration as common, but the focus is different. And finally, the outcome is also resulting to be the different. Then we looked into the importance of design thinking in engineer, and we looked into the cases that were failure where only you had engineers working and versus the design thinking team that helped to make a big products. Then we looked into the most important part, I would say, or the starting point of a design thinking is formation of a team, and what are the steps of making a performing team. Then we looked into the important part of any project implementation is a documentation and certain case study cases of how the things needs to be documentation and its importance. So I'll stop here. Anybody has any doubt? I see 37 were there, now 33 are there. I don't know how many I could capture. In case the things do not come at the Zoom, with the backup, I have kept already screenshot of the whole attendance. Thank you all for joining. If you don't have any doubts, I can close the meeting. Yeah? Yes, should I close it? Thank you all. We'll meet on Tuesday.